An absolutely wild session today in the index. Let's go ahead and recap it here. Essentially, we came into the session looking for pretty much the reaction versus the 43.35. Now, on the near term 15 and 30-minute chart, that is an area of support. It also corresponds with one of the fib levels that we have from the NFP low 3-day rally. You can see 50% retracement point right there near the 43.35. So coming into the session looking for any type of reaction versus that 43.35. The day started relatively slow. You do mark a session high pretty early in the session, and then you just kind of get this drift. This is a decent range that you can scalp, but overall not my favorite type of action. Anytime the 5-minute is just showing what I call barcode here, tend to want to avoid that. Now past 10 a.m. we do resolve lower down through the prior day low, which was a reference point for today's session, and notably below the 43.35 level. So the question becomes, are bears, are sellers going to show any type of follow through for this session? There clearly was an attempt to show some follow through here. You obviously have what I would consider a fight within the tape. Prices make a fresh session low. This ends up being a Wyckoff spring. It's a look below session low, and we get a pretty substantial bounce from that point. So at this point, the near-term range is holding, right? The 43.35 is holding. We do have some Powell commentary and some other Fed speakers throughout the early afternoon, late morning, but all of this action just shows us that near-term area of support, near-term range is holding. Failure to make a fresh session high here results in lower prices. You get a retest into the session volume point of control, some attempted bids right through here, but again, just does not materialize into anything. Once that low fails, once that value area low fails, most people that are long from today's session or long versus that area of near-term support are now underwater. Their stops are being hit, down here into 43.20 into session lows. And now we're just totally resolving lower through the 4,300 level. That was the first target. If 43.35 failed, we did have a smaller reference point here at the 43.17, which is where it initially bounced, early afternoon, but again, just sliced right through that into the later afternoon session here, and now we're into the 4300. Now that is a big psychological level. Clearly, sellers have regained their grip on this tape. What I want to look at right now is the weekly chart on ES. Now this is significant because we are now breaking below last week's low. So we'll want to keep a very close eye on this 4,300 level into tomorrow's session. See what kind of overnight activity we get. If that weakness is continuing below 4,300 tomorrow, I'd be looking at some levels within here, potentially 42.66, potentially 42.50. And this is the regular trading hours chart. When we get into the overnight as well, let's take a look here. The true low down here is 42.36, right? So pretty much the main watch into tomorrow, once again, to reiterate, is that 4,300 level. It's kind of another area for buyers to be stepping in, big psychological level. It's also the breakout point from Friday's NFP move on October 6th, early October. We did see the breakout there. Following NFP, gap down that Monday, it holds, right? And so we're pretty much retesting that breakout point, looking at the kind of near term. If we zoom out a bit, what does this look like, right? Pretty much just sideways. No real progress. It is volatile, absolutely, and it is a very, very wide range, but we're still trading at levels from late September. And so tomorrow, what I'll primarily be looking to assess is whether or not there's any buying appetite versus 4,300. If there is, we're looking, of course, at the 43.35 once again, perhaps up into that 43.70. That'll kind of give us some clues as to whether or not, this is a real move or some type of shakeout, some type of trap to get fresh shorts in here. I do maintain that this could be a seasonal low that we saw in early October. Until we actually see sustained trading below that, I'm pretty much going to be sticking with that thesis. And so that's kind of one thing I'm keeping a very close eye on, is whether or not we see some trading down below that 42.50 area, pretty much the NFP low right through there. Overall, pretty wild session, though. A lot of activity today. Great action for an active trader. For individual names, what I would like to see, I do have a few names in the list. We're looking at CCJ. Daily, this did show some relative strength today. We have CRM. Whoops. Do have CRM. Again, showed a little bit of relative strength today. I like this one up above 212. Netflix, this will be a second day trade. We had the long on watch today, which panned out nicely. Trigger was 395. That holds. And you get a test up into 400, up into 405, which was our PT2. No real follow through up into PT3, likely a byproduct of the weaker indices. But this will be a second day watch, seeing if buyers continue to step in here versus the 50 MA versus the 400 psychological level. Also have RBLX on the individual name list. Look at the relative strength in this name on big volume as well. Trading on higher than average volume. And so I would like to see this show a change in character up above this 32 level. 32, we can go for 32.5, and then it's up into the gap, right? So that can be a very nice long trade. Also have Tesla, the second day watch here in Tesla. So this apex that we're watching here, this consolidation, was pushing into the apex of essentially a wedge, a triangle. Clearly it broke down. No doubt about it that it broke down. And so what I mentioned this morning in the pre-market prep was that I wanted to see some action versus 215 as a potential area of support. It's just about there. And so I'll be looking at that 215 area as a potential area of support. Maybe we see a bounce there. Maybe not. We'll be assessing that one tomorrow. And that's pretty much it for the individual names. Taking a look at NQ once again. I mean, the trend line here pretty much marked the high October 12th, and it's just been down ever since then. It is down through 15K now. So you do want to see if this kind of lower area of support is going to be tested. And that's pretty much, I mean, the levels are pretty straightforward here. We're looking at 15K down into potentially 14,700. But really 15K is the main level here. We're 90 points below it currently. So we'll see what the overnight action looks like. I do believe we have more earnings after the bell today. Looking at the chat here, Benny, NQ 14,800. Let's take a look. I'll need to get into near-term structure. So let me bring out the hourly chart. Yeah, so take a look at your near-term volume point of control here, right into this 14 kind of 885. A lot of volume has been transacted here clearly, and the hourly is trying to develop a hammer. So if I were trading NQ, I'd be looking at least for tomorrow, right, at how price is trading versus this hammer that we have into the close here. If that 14,850 gives out, let me zoom out again. I mean, there's not a lot of support here until, your 14,800 is decent. But yeah, 14,600, I agree with you there. 14,600. So I would expect if you are shorting, 14,600, it's pretty much going to be the target. They may blip it below, but I would be careful with, at least for tomorrow, just speaking on tomorrow only, careful with shorts below that level. Tends to, when you get into those key levels, tends to show a lot of traps. You do have, just imagine the amount of stops that are probably resting below here, right? So something to keep in mind. Pretty similar on ES. Let's take another look at ES. Now, this is different in the sense that, excuse me, look at the volume profile. Volume point of control is overhead. And so what was interesting, I forgot to mention this in the recap earlier, but take a look at where the high was for today. You can see my level there. Prior day volume point of control. That's why I'm always looking at session profiles. We get into here, check out the high. It's right there at the prior day volume point of control. Now, if you look at the prior day at Wednesday's action, look at the high from there as well. Tuesday's volume point of control. So keep an eye on those prior day volume point of controls if you don't currently. Those are usually a pretty good reference point when you're trading the index. I personally am always watching those levels. They tend to be respected one way or another, right? Either as some sort of support, or in this case, resistance, back-to-back days of resistance. So if you're long, you're thinking like, I'm going to grab this pullback, which was a phenomenal pullback. Where are we targeting? Well, session highs and then prior day volume point of control, treat it as a reference point. Or if you need to reload your shorts or something, right? So those are good reference points. Now on ES, the concern here is that, all the volume from September 21st until now is now overhead, 4370. We have a big volume shelf there. Next one is down here, which we're also below, 4325. So we do kind of have this level of interest, the value area low, which coincides almost perfectly with the 4300. I'll just call it 4300, and we'll treat it like that. And see, you do have a bit of a bounce into the close here, right? So keep it simple. Call it 4300. We'll take it from there. We will take it from there. Any questions? Everything making sense? Alrighty. Well, I hope you guys had a great sesh. And I will see you in the morning for the pre-market prep. Get that review done if you haven't already. Take a look at those best trades. Take a look at your own actions, your own behaviors. Yeah, zoom out, Benny. Zoom out for sure. That's where, you really get context. Zoom out. It's very easy to get caught into the minutia of the intraday and then miss something big. Like, well, why did that happen? Well, you needed to zoom out. That's happened to me before. So that's why I always start with top-down approach. Daily, hourly sometimes. I don't look at the hourly all that often, but daily, definitely 30-minute, 15-minute, and then get into your intraday for execution. So build your plan on the higher time frame. And then the only reason we're watching the lower, maybe a 1 minute, maybe a 2 minute, maybe even a 30-second is just or a 5 minute, right? That's just to see how price is reacting to our kind of big picture context and establishing trade ideas. It gives us tighter risk points than something like an hourly chart, right? So that's a wrap. I'll see you guys in the morning. Have a good evening. Later.